We are going to begin Paleo, the only template for good health, with Dr. Lane Sebring, who is recognized by Loren Cordain as the first doctor in the United States to base his medical practice on the paleo diet. He has been practicing integrative medicine for over 18 years, and he has served as the board examiner for the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine and is director of Sebring Clinic here in Wimberley, Texas. Let's give him a big round of applause.
Okay. Welcome. We've got 20 minutes and I have a lot to say, so fasten your seatbelt. What I want to provide you is a template, a way of filtering out some of the nonsense that you hear about paleo today. Paleo is a specific diet. There's some things yet to be worked out, but what you find is that people are putting their favorite foods in paleo somehow and rationalizing it. But that's what the 15% is for. If you've ever read any of Loren Cordain's books, he was kind of the first person to really put all this together and describe what paleo was or is. And he says, somebody asked him in the very first lecture, I think that he had actually given on this. He had written a Sentinel paper but hadn't been published yet. This is in 1998, and I was lucky enough to be in the audience, and I said, so a chiropractor right next to me raised his hand and said, so how much do you have to do this diet? And he said, if you do this diet 80, 85%, you've done yourself a real favor. It's the people with chronic diseases that need to do it 100%. Okay, but now we know if you do it 100%, you're going to ratchet your health up to the next level that you're not going to be able to attain without going 100% paleo. It's the most powerful tool I've ever had. There's nothing to compare with it. If a person really wants good health, this is the direction you have to go. It's a learning curve, learning how to do paleo, but you're really not going to get there to the potential you have. Hunter-gatherers are faster than us. They're stronger than us. They can hear much better than we can. They can see better than we can. They can smell the urine of an animal from 40 paces and tell you what it is, even male or female. We have the exact same genes they do. But yet they have this capacity because they haven't mucked it all up with a whole bunch of bad signaling, chronic inflammation. A lot of, you eat food and it comes in and affects your DNA for maybe 72 hours. What's transcribed off of that DNA is affected by what you eat. So if a person is not following the paleo diet, then everything else they do to improve their health is just trying to make up that difference. And it's going to fail. But health is, of course, a lot more than just diet. But the diet is so foundational that it's essential that you get that going, and it's something we can do. You can go for some of the foods that are non-paleo, but why would you? Once you get into the mindset and experience the healing capacity of this diet, you find out and begin to feel more of your potential. If you're good at that, and you do paleo for 2 or 3 months, and you go back and have a couple of grandma's biscuits or something like that, you're going to have stomach cramps and diarrhea for the next, 6 to 8 hours, and it kind of tells you, it punishes you. It says, that's not food, okay? Don't eat that. Let me see. The diet's it's an honest attempt to determine what humans are really designed to eat. That's the real question that I think Cordain asked. He ran across a paper back in 1983 in Journal of American Medical Association, and it was looking at hunter-gatherers. The paper was written by Boyd Eaton, an MD, and Melvin Connor, a biological anthropologist from Harvard who had spent 9 years with the Kung people down in Africa. And so they just talked about the health of hunter-gatherers, and they seem to be so superior to ours. They don't get all the chronic diseases we just expect we're supposed to get in old age. And so Cordain saw this and had dedicated his research, and he was still in school and got his PhD in exercise physiology, and then got graduate students, and they looked at data from 229 groups of hunter-gatherers, looked at what they ate, examined their food for its nutritional content, etc., and figured out these people just were on a very superior diet and not eating the negative foods that we have added in the last 10,000 years. So when we started growing our own foods, we did so in the Middle East 10,000 years ago as a survival tactic. It became much drier, and most of the plant life died out. A large portion of the big game was basically wiped out by us. And we had to do something to survive. So, hunter-gatherers have a tremendous knowledge of plants, and they can grow anything if they wanted to, but they never needed to. But they chose grains to grow. in the Middle East to survive by the riverbanks. They could grow that. But this was the result. 6 to 7 inches are lost in height whenever grains are introduced into the diet of a people. These facts follow that distribution of grains around the world. Whenever and wherever grains are introduced into the diet, these are the problems you get. You get osteoporosis, effectively non-existent in the archaeologic record prior to the introduction of grains into the diet. The one exception is Eskimos, because they have no alkalinizing foods, and they deposit too much calcium in the kidneys to buffer the urine, so they tend to get osteoporosis, but no other groups of people prior to the introduction of grains. Autoimmune diseases began for the first time in the Middle East 10,000 years ago. More frequent and devastating infections. The sphenoid bone here that buttresses the sides of the skull and supports the brain back through here was no longer strong enough to span that original distance, so the body narrowed it. And we ended up with smaller brains, a nose you can't hardly breathe out of, and a jaw that no longer holds all of our teeth, so you get a crowding of teeth. Okay? So these are some of the things. By the way, the infant mortality went up with civilization, not down. Later, dairy was added. In some cases, more recent, it's replaced breastfeeding. That's a mistake. But it's baby food. Babies are not little adults. They need a very different food to be healthy, optimally healthy. They need breast milk. That's all they need, and that's what they're supposed to get. It's the perfect food. Even in the 1940s, the commercial producers of formulas were saying it's better than mom. You know, what a travesty. But when I was in residency and in medical school, the pediatricians would always say, babies are not little adults. You can't think of them that way. But their physiology changes at about 3 years old and becomes much more like an adult. So then you introduce those foods, and you can a little bit before then. Here's another fact. If you introduce grains into the diet of a baby in the first 3 months, they're about 18 times more likely to get childhood diabetes. Okay? The longer you keep it out of their diet, the lower the incidence or likelihood they're going to become diabetic. Legumes are nutrient depleted. They're toxic. Potatoes binds up our digestive enzymes, so do the legumes, so do the grains. So you don't get the full benefit of the more nutrient-dense foods that you would be eating, like steak, salmon, broccoli, strawberries, etc., that type of stuff. The appropriate foods, they want to be eaten. We became the dominant species on the planet for one reason, because we had the most nutrient-dense foods. Also, we ate a variety of foods, so when the environment changed, we were ready to move with that as needed, and so we could survive. It's the specialist that goes extinct. If you have variety as your choices, then when the environment changes, you still have choices. Their bright colors, they're calling you with their bright colors. The vegetables and the fruits and the berries saying, hey, look at me, look at me. And when they're the most bright, they're the most nutritious. They're even scented, pretty compelling. Then we eat them. Animals eat them. And then 10 miles down the road, they start depositing that plant's seeds in piles of fertilizer. Okay? When you're eating grains, that's the plant seed. When you're eating beans, that's the plant seed. They don't want that eaten. So they put toxins in it on purpose. So animals don't eat them. We've learned if you heat them up enough, you get rid of most of those toxins, but not all of them. Okay? And they're still not designed to be eaten. These foods here and the fruits and nuts and berries actually produce molecules that go straight to our DNA and turn on and turn off big banks of regulatory genes that affect our physiology for up to 72 hours. And this affectation is actually seasonally appropriate. Okay? So you should eat local food in season, and you'll watch changes in your health you didn't have before. What's happened with the fruits and the nuts and the berries is a coevolution with the animals. The animals learn to live off of that, and the plants learn to feed the animals. In times of drought, those plants will change a lot of the molecules and the ratios so that the animals are able to handle the stress of the drought better. There really is this symbiosis to a large degree between us and the plants. The plants are in trouble if the animals die out, because they're spending a lot of energy trying to keep those, make a beautiful seed, etc., make it attractive, and then have it scattered across the countryside. So grains are not appropriate. They don't want to be eaten. They put toxins in their seeds so animals, insects don't eat it. Considered starvation food by hunter-gatherers. They're not pretty. They don't smell good. If you had a bowl here of chopped up raw grains, chopped up raw beans, and chopped up raw potatoes, that wouldn't look like food. That wouldn't smell like food. It'd smell like dirt. And if you ate enough of it, it'd kill you. That's not food, okay? So these are principles that you can think of when people start trying to get you to eat the potato chips or whatever. It's okay because it's organic. So why would we choose grains? Because you can store them. Now, the next question should be, why can you store them? And the answer is because nothing can live off of it. Okay, that's why you can store them. Same with the beans. You can store them forever. And they're really horrible if you don't put something with them to make them taste good. They taste horrible. Who wants to eat white flour, right? So meat. Animals don't want to be eaten like the fruits and nuts and the vegetables do, but that's too bad. We eat them. That's the shadow side of humanity. We're predators, and that's why a lot of vegetarians have this psychological hang-up, and I kind of get it. You know, I'm not excited about killing animals, but there's nothing that's been more devastating to the plant life on this, or I'm sorry, the animal life on this planet than agriculture. You want to wipe out a species, move in agriculture. These animals, these herbaceous animals, spend a whole bunch of their time eating, and they sequester and concentrate certain nutrients that we need, particularly for the brain. Brain size doubled when we started eating meat because the brain requires certain essential fats you can't get off a vegetarian diet in high enough quantity. So these animals do the work for us. Then we stand back, wait for them to get really healthy and plump, and then we eat them. So brain size doubled. So this is your brain on meat, not on meat, okay? The paleo diet is the best diet on the planet. Why? Well, it's because it's what we're designed for. It's very nutrient dense. You don't have to eat a lot of food to get what you need. It gives us a lot of choices. When the environment changes, I talked about that already. And we don't have to spend 10 hours a day eating food like the vegetarians do. Here's an interesting one. The average hunter-gatherer workday is 2.5 hours. So what does that do? You know, well, it gives us leisure time that is developed by eating these other animals that are spending the time sequestering this stuff. It allows us time to ponder, to play, to create, to problem solve, to discover, and to love. And these are all what we're supposed to do and what we do better than anything else on the planet. So it's our birthright. What a mother eats during her pregnancy can have a permanent effect on the DNA of her child. So I think people need to pay attention to that, and when you see pregnant people, go talk to them. You see somebody that's potentially, you need to just give them the information. This is a foraging theory also about paleo diet. Basically, this is a list of foods, and this is how many calories in an hour of work going after that food that you can get on average, okay? Now, we don't have any data on the buffalo of America or the bison in Europe and the great big game. Those are gone, and nobody's eating them in a hunter-gatherer style. But wild pig, 65,000 calories in an hour is an average catch. That's efficient use of your time. And the grass fruits, I don't know where that one came from, but it's from 200 to 1,000 calories an hour. And that's preparing it because you have to cook it, has to grind it, etc. But you're running around, nobody was cultivating the grass seeds, the grains, etc. So you just had to find them here and you find them there, and it was very inefficient. So that's not been part of our genetic past for that reason. And then, of course, they're nutrient depleted and nutrient depleting. Remember, they bind up your digestive enzymes. So these plants, the the potatoes and the beans and the grains will bind up our digestive enzymes, and so they don't get digested. We've got 28 feet from end to end, and it all should be digested here. We always have redundancy. We always have reserve capacity to handle stresses in case things go bad or are not as efficient. So, but if it's bound up, the digestive enzymes, it's going to go all the way down towards the end and feed all the bacteria, which overgrow, produce their toxins, cause inflammation, etc. So you want to digest it early. One of the supplements that I recommend for people over 40 and sometimes earlier is a digestive enzymes with each meal. It can make a real difference. But here's deer and antelope, 9,000 to 11,000. How long did it take a deer to, how long did it take an Indian to come back with a deer after he left his teepee or his lodge? And the average is about 30 minutes. It's very efficient. Acorns, 1,000. So many people say their favorite food because it was discovered that a certain group of hunter-gatherers ate it. There's an example here of these people who were 14,000 years ago that ate a lot of acorns, probably because environmentally that was all there was. But half of the teeth they found of these people had cavities in them. So they had mouths full of pus and abscesses, and this is not paleo. Yeah, you can say these people were eating acorns on a high carbohydrate diet, and they did okay. Well, they survived, but surviving is not thriving. Eskimos get osteoporosis, just like I said, it's not an ideal environment. So the paleo diet is what it is because of the dynamics of evolution and genetics, and makes quite an educated assumption that 2.7 million years of genetic selection as hunter-gatherers has absolute influence on the diet around which we are designed. The foundation is always present. Remember, biology, and this is a key point, biology adds on to what was there. So if you move into an area and you have to change your food and you adapt or whatever, like we're doing with grains and then dairy, etc., potatoes, whatever, that's an adaptation. That's not an optimization. That's still happening. And it's not a very good food to start with. It's got a lot of negative effects. So it's never going to be optimal like the original paleo foods. They're still starvation food. So why would you go there? The most profound evidence for me is my patients of 14 years and hundreds of patients, and watching them and listening to their stories and problems going away that they didn't even know were problems. That's really some of the best evidence you can ever find. And then going off of that again and feeling bad. So eat whatever foods you wish, denying your very genes. But do so making a conscious choice, knowing you will live a reduced life, never having tasted what it feels like to feel the full expression of your genetics to be a truly healthy human being. And don't call it paleo, okay? Paleo is what it is, and put your own name on it. I don't care what you do, but don't call it paleo. Don't steal this gift. And that'll happen. This will become, paleo will get watered down. So, I was going to talk about resistance exercise here, but I'm going to show off a little bit, I guess. This is me probably about a month ago. You can't hear this, I guess, right? Okay, I just got this rope in the mail. I put it up about 30 minutes ago. And I said, I used to be a pretty good rope climber, but I haven't done it in what really turns out to be 29 years. So I put that up there, and I said, well, here goes. You know, my career's at stake here. So, 29 years, I can still do it. That's the way paleo can keep you. You got to exercise too, but yeah, that feels good. It was fun. So we got questions now?